Okay, so this is KegMetrics, and this is your primer on how to use KegMetrics. Now the brewery I've got loaded is my famous demo brewery, but this will walk you through the core concepts. Okay, so up at the top we have production, metrics, kegs, which is your keg search page, and that's the page we're on right now, customers, KM labs, and setup. Now, if you don't see setup, it's because you have staff permission levels and not manager or owner. You must have manager or owner permission levels in order to access the setup, which is the configuration of KegMetrics. Otherwise, you should be able to use KegMetrics, no problem. The things that you cannot do if you're a staff member is you cannot add users, you cannot change the workflow, you cannot edit the brewery. Those are the core main things. And those are things that are reserved for managers. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into a quick search. I'm going to show you, I'm doing this a little backwards because it's easier to grok it. We'll get into scanning in a second. So I'm going to show you all kegs. This is a quick little search right here. It's always there. It's your quick search. It's great if you have a very small brewery, but if you have, say, 500, 1,000 kegs or something like that, you are going to want to use a regular search. So the quick search has brought up, my all kegs has brought up every keg in my brewery. And if you have a lot of kegs, then obviously you're going to be scrolling for a long time. The search will take a little bit longer, and so on. So to get around that, what we do is we have searches. It's just like you would in Google. So you want to come in here and, for example, let's say you want to know the current status. You want to know what kegs do I have out for distribution. So you would select current status, and then you would select distribute. Now you see these other things here where distribute colon machine number. These are additional phases that you can search on to narrow it even further. For this particular primer and for all of your 101 uses, check just the top one. Select just the one without any colons on it. Distribute. I selected the current status, parent phase, distribute, and I'll explain phases in a second. That search, boom. So these are all the kegs I currently have out in my brewery right now that are out for distribution. Let's look at one here, 1046. I'm going to click on the magnifying glass right next to the serial number, or I can click on the serial number. If you don't have a serial number, the magnifying glass works just the same. When I click on that keg, I can see all the scans I've ever made on that one particular keg since the beginning of time. And the most recent scan, or the most recent status, is up at the top. In this particular case, it's distribute. And it went to this customer, Bob at KegMetrics example customer.com, and it was scanned in by myself. Here's the timestamp that happens automatically when you scan it. On this page, you can do things like edit that particular scan entry by clicking the little cog wheels. You could delete it. I wouldn't recommend that. You could also manually create a new keg entry or status entry here. You can also update some of the properties of the kegs. So for example, this puppy right here, alternate lookup ID, that is actually where your Frankie Keg code goes. To make the Frankie Keg code work with KegMetrics, you have to add it right there under alternate lookup ID. The serial number many times is the same as the Frankie Keg code, but it doesn't have to be. The serial number can be anything. You obviously know the size. The purchase on date is when you put that keg into service, so you can track, for example, how long before you can purchase that keg outright at the discounted pre-negotiated rate, or obviously the brewery is there. So let's go back. So I've just performed a search, and let's say I want to narrow that search even more, like I just want to know what are my 30 liters that are out in distribution, so I can do that. And I've now am searching on two things that basically narrow the search even further. You're allowed to have up to 3 total to narrow it down, and you'll get it pretty narrow. This is searching for distributed and a 30 liter. So these are and searches, if you're familiar with that. Some of the features I want to point out is after you do a search, you can actually copy the results if you would like, and it can go right into your clipboard, so you can paste it into an email or a spreadsheet or something. But you know what else? You can just click this email CSV, and now it is emailing to yourself, your logged in email address, and away it goes. Just like that, you've got it. Now you can forward it off to your collections team, or let's say you were also searching with a customer, you could then send it to them. So that is a quick way to narrow things down. Okay, so let us go ahead and walk through the different columns here. Size or serial number, we've talked about. ID is the KegMetrics ID. It gets generated automatically when we create the kegs. It's just a good reference point. The size, your batch number, if you filled it, you need to assign a batch number to it. And so that's showing up right here. That's how you can search on, say, type of beer. Date kegged, this gets timestamped automatically when you fill it, and it shows up right here just for your convenience. Current status, this is the parent status, distribute, and this is when it was put into distribution. It's been there for less than a day, and this is the customer that received it. Pretty straightforward. The notes section, you can put in things like we've got right here, seal is suspect, right? You can also put in whatever you want, and it's accessed through the edit properties right here on the notes section. So you would select edit keg properties, type in something right there, and save it. That is going to be persistent regardless of cycle. So it'll be there until you clear it. Purchase date is also something that is persistent regardless of cycle, and you add it in the same place that you did the notes section. You just click on the keg, edit keg properties, and under the purchase date, select the date that you're putting that keg into service. This will allow you to track track when that keg shell is up for a purchase price, so you can buy it outright. Because some leasing programs, companies allow you to do that. All right, so we've done searches. Pretty straightforward. Now, how do we scan, right? So if you would like to scan, you would go to the production page, and what I mean by scan is update the phases. So in this particular page, we have on the left side what we call parent phases, and parent phases are nothing more than groupings of, you got it, child phases. In this particular example, we have cleaning as the parent phase, with clean as a child phase. And we do this to reduce the amount of times you have to scan kegs. So you can group things together like this one. Under inventory, with one scan, you can update a keg to be filled with a particular beer name and batch. And also, at the same time, in the same scan, you can put it to available inventory. That way, we can mix and match how the workflow works for you guys. For example, some breweries prefer to put clean right up here as well. So they can just scan it as clean, filled, and in available inventory, all with one scan rather than 3 scans. When you're doing a lot of maneuvering, that makes a big difference. Okay, so let me walk through some core concepts. So the KegMetrics application tracks your cycle, which means every keg starts off clean, it gets filled, it gets consumed somehow, right? That can be on tap or distributed, or or walk-in you might have or something like that. And then the keg gets received back. Every single keg is going to be cleaned. Every single keg in a cycle, every single keg is going to be filled in a cycle, and every single keg is going to be received dirty, right? How it gets consumed is variable. Some of these other things like service and special, those are variable, but we know those are the core points by which a keg always goes through. So what you want to do is you always want to start off a cycle with clean. Think of it like this. When you clean your keg, you're washing away the data from the old cycle. All right, does that make sense? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is, I'm going to show you a little trick here. You can duplicate this tab. I'm going to go to the search page. I'm going to just do an all keg search here. So this information right here that says the customer or the batch that's in it, all of that gets reset on this page for display when you wash the keg. It's pretty simple. Now, that information is not deleted from the log, it just resets it, right? So for example, let's click on this one here, 1087. There's nothing in the customer, but I bet you I can find a customer in the past somewhere. Maybe, yep, there we are. Here's a customer in the past. So this is every entry, but it's not displayed here because that's not the current status. And the way KegMetrics knows it's not the current status is because we've scanned it as clean. That is the main core concept that you need to keep in mind as you're going through and scanning your kegs. So look at your workflow. You do the work and you scan the kegs. Then you do the work and scan the kegs. We recommend that breweries, when they're phasing in using KegMetrics, they start at the receiving stage. So they scan the kegs as dirty when they receive them, and then that starts the cycle. And then when they wash the kegs, they scan them as clean, obviously, and so on. It's usually a good way to phase it in that way. Okay, so let's scan some kegs. So I've got a KegMetrics scan code all in my clipboard here that I can paste in. It's simulating how to scan with a scan gun, but I don't have one on hand. So if I have a keg, for example, that is in the dirty phase, I can just scan it as clean. And the way I can do that, boom, I just put the gun towards the label on the keg, scan it, and it should automatically hit enter and go right in. This is a warning that you might see, and this warning is basically saying, hey, what you just scanned is out of our expected order, meaning we're going to go ahead and put it into this new phase, but we weren't expecting this. We were expecting some other phase. So we can go look and see 1046. 1046 was in distribution, and I just cleaned it. So it's telling me I skipped the dirty phase. It's pretty interesting, huh? Now, if I refresh this, you'll see 1046 is in fact updated now to clean. So we're ready to rock and roll. Let's grab a different one, and I'll show you another one here. I'm just grabbing this code here and clipboard just to simulate it. And I'll go ahead and scan this one. So there you go. You notice that this one is now clean and it has been also entered in the phase. And so yes, you can just scan, scan, scan. Let's go ahead and fill one of these. I'll go ahead and fill it with the stout, and I'll select the right batch, which is this stout, and scan it in. And now that keg has been put into available inventory and is filled with the stout. As you will see right here, that was 1047. 1047 is now got a stout. It was filled right now, less than a day ago. Pretty straightforward concept. So you would do that when you want to distribute it. Anytime you sell the keg and the keg goes off premise, you scan it as distribute, and then that tells KegMetrics to start tracking how long that particular customer has the keg. So that means self-distributing if you're dropping it off at a bar or a bottle house or whatever, bottle shop, or you're selling it to a bunch of distributors, scan it out because it's no longer in your possession as distribute. And a cool feature about this is since KegMetrics is tracking it, if you go to the customer section, I'll show you actually, I'll just do it right here. If you go to the customer section, we have this feature here called Auto Notify. And if it gets toggled on, it's off by default. If it gets toggled on, it will send an email at 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, and 90 days, and once every 2 days after that to that particular customer saying, hey, thanks for the purchase. We hope you really enjoyed it. By the way, we see that you have these kegs of ours. You've had them for this long, this many days or whatever, and this is what you bought, and here's the number. We'd love to collect the empties. Now again, that is off by default, but you can toggle it per customer on. Let's go back and see if there's anything else in scanning. No, about the only other thing is service. This is kind of an optional one that you can scan, so you can keep track of your service records on your kegs, like you changed your valve or stem or something like that. Fantastic. That's all there is to it. Scan gun, you point into the box, make sure things are checked that you want updated, and scan away. excuse me, metrics. Okay, so the metrics are updated every 2 hours on the server. So that means every 2 hours we go through all of the records and we update where things currently are. And we do that on the server because it can take a long time to load it if you do it on demand here in the client, which is your browser, especially if you have, say, more than 1,000 kegs. But so this tallies up where things are at. You've got kegs that are clean. You've got this many gallons or liters or barrels. You can see that it's adding them up, and you can also do some searches. So let's go ahead and click on this. Inventory. Oh, before I go away here, it's also tracking your throughput. So I mentioned we're tracking cycles. So this is how long on average it takes for a keg to go from clean to clean in your brewery. This is crazy wrong because it's a demo brewery, but you get the idea. Each one of these are also a preset search. So I can just come in here, click this, and it takes me to the page, does the search in one click. Just like that, I can see these are the 2 kegs that I have in inventory, the 2 particular batches, and there you go. Customers, I'm not really going to go into customers other than the feature I already explained. You can click on the page. This is where you you manage your customers. You can create new customers here if you'd like. The only thing we require is an email and their name. And the reason why we require an email is because that is our unique tracking for that particular customer. If you don't have the email, you can go ahead and just put a fake email in their email address and make sure this guy is toggled off. One quick thing before we go into the KM Labs that's related to also to customers is you may have noticed here on the side, you can actually add things right here. And so just like customers, you can, just like other things, you can add a customer right here on your scan page on the fly for quick and easy ability. Same with the batch numbers, and anytime you see a plus here, you can add it. Before I leave this page, you may be seeing some naming that is slightly different for yours, and that's because each KegMetrics brewery has been customized and tailored for that particular brewery. The core concepts are the same, and we would love to update it if you want some changes. You can actually update them yourself, but it's out of the scope of this training video. And it's done in the setup thing, but we prefer to do it because it helps us understand what our customers actually need. And so there's no charge for that. Just send an email to support@kegmetrics.com. KM Labs here, I just clicked on, is where we have a lot of reports. So all the searches that you've seen so far, all the displays are your current status. Where is everything now? But if you want to do some reports like what did I sell last month or what did I fill last month as required, by a lot of these state laws, you would do so under the KM Labs section. Here we have one-click batch fill reports, sell reports, scan reports. This is a little out of the scope of this particular demo video, but you can go ahead and create these reports for yourself. They get emailed to you as a CSV. Lastly is the setup. Again, I am not going to go through this, but you can see this is where you can edit your workflow, your attributes, various different users if you want to add more users to your account, like new staff members or whatever else, and then some other pieces like your brewery, like your time zone and your address and whatnot. Okay, so that is the key pieces of KegMetrics and how to use it. I went through it really fast, so feel free to watch this again. Also, you can click right here on the help button, and you can just type in things like getting started. And that will bring up a list of articles that you might find useful. You can click on one like how to export your data. And you can click on this and it gives you a quick little rundown on it. Many of those help articles have videos, and you can also click on this button right here to go to the original size, the original page that has that. If you are looking for something that you can't find, or you just have a problem or want to report a bug or issue or something like that, you can do so by just clicking on this, leave us a message. Type in your name, email address, and what the message is, and if there's any attachments, and send it, and it goes right to support@kegmetrics.com, and we'll be able to reply back pretty quickly. We prefer email communication because it helps us keep track of everything. Obviously, that's not required, but this is the fastest way to get in touch with us. All right. If you have any questions, please reach out to support@kegmetrics.com, and we look forward to working with you. Take care.